Hi, and welcome to First Name Basis. Today we have the pleasure of having Daman Philip from India. Now, she is a certified relationship and master coach. She helps create and build relationships, saves one headed for disaster, and makes good ones even better. Now, today I'm particularly interested in her work as a divorce coach. Now, Daman, you have a comment that you made, and I'm just going to read it out. This is you saying this. I firmly believe that there is no bad relationship. Lack of the latest strategies is what gets people behind. I closely work with couples and singles to create positive strategies and provide effective tools so your relationship can grow, improve, and thrive. I focus on helping women and couples transition from desperation about their difficulties to delight in sharing their lives together. That's a wonderful sentence.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's what got me really interested in what you're doing. Can you tell me what, from your perspective, constitutes a marriage?
That's an interesting question. So sure, there are there are many factors that really contribute to a satisfying marriage or a relationship. I mean, you could look at connection or commitment, trust. You look at tolerance. You look at constructive management, of disagreements or even agreements for that matter. Um, the ability and the willingness to forgive, apologize, and the list is simple, but it's very obvious as well. Yet it can be very difficult for individuals, or couples for that matter, to restore their marriage and relationship into a satisfying one, especially when challenges arise, right? But if you're at a stage, and this is what I want to say, is that if you're at a stage where the words "I do" are closing in, you're thinking of a commitment, uh, then I will point out just a few of the many things that could ascertain that the relationship is there for the long haul. Um, One, most importantly, you have each other's back. Okay, you're sure that your better half is there for you should you need him or her. You're aware that your partner is not perfect, but together both of you are perfect. I mean, if you look at these things, I meet a lot of couples, and one of the things that I notice is that there are a lot of unrealistic expectations of each other.
Right.
So you need to have those realistic expectations, and very importantly, you ensure that, and this in particular, I have noticed it in India, Ashok, is there are a lot of problems that arise with the interference, or rather, should I say, is due to in-laws. When you're married, what I would want to say is you're connected to your partner's family. When you marry someone, you marry into the family. And I've noticed that when the couple is heading towards tying the knot, specifically at that time, they spend a lot of time with each other's families, hoping for approvals, or be there to respond to questions, or even disapprovals for that matter. But once they get married, the dynamic changes.
In Canada, oftentimes the last thing that happens is people meet the families.
Like to really point out in our conversation today is to have healthy boundaries in place. And you live by those boundaries. No matter how good a relationship is, temptations will always exist. And a couple without boundaries is a disaster waiting to happen.
Well, it's a fascinating idea, Daman, because when people lived in tribes, in much smaller groups of people, a union between a couple that would be productive of children is adding to the tribe. So the whole tribe is invested in that couple's relationship and those children, and would raise the children and protect that couple to stay together. Because if that couple break, it's a threat to the whole tribe. But now that we live in these huge cultures, where there's really anonymity, so nobody knows each other, it's much harder to find that same kind of connection that tribe can reinforce. And also the whole idea of raising the tribe, raising the children, certainly in Western culture, that's much less likely to happen, which is why we have babysitters and people who are not part of the tribe raising other people's children. There's nothing wrong with that in this culture. That's just kind of the way it often is. So do you think love or friendship is an ingredient in a marriage, if you can talk to that?
My question is here, why should one have to choose between love and friendship? Why can't we enjoy both? Well,
let me tell you why. Let me interrupt you here. Okay, let's chat. We're therapists. A lot of people, when they meet and get married, they're in love. They're so in love that they might be blind and deaf. And that love is so strong that compels them to get married. But then after a while, sometimes after just a few years, they realize that they weren't even really friends to start with. And as that in love kind of calms down to what I call content love, there may or may not be a friendship there. So I think friendship and love are essential ingredients of marriage. So I fully agree with you. But when people marry without checking to see if there's a friendship there, that relationship might be having some stresses later on. What do you think?
Oh, yes. I completely agree. I call that the infatuation phase, the honeymoon phase. I mean, I'm with you. Absolutely aligned to what you're saying. I mean, love and friendship I was going to say, are two sides of the same coin. When there is friendship, there will always be love. And personally, Ashok, I'm of the belief that when a marriage is unhappy, when it's deteriorating, it is more a lack of friendship. So if you look at friendship, what exactly are we talking about here? What is the exact definition of friendship? It's for me, friendship personally, it's about trust, it's about honesty, it's about respect, it's about knowing that you have each other's back. But then, isn't that what love is also about? So
I think friendship, I want to tell you my definition of friendship. Friendship is a person that you can comfortably inconvenience. So if your car breaks down, who can you call? You can't call your acquaintances. And if you do, that person might become a friend. Correct. So it's a strange idea that friendship is really defined by inconvenience, but marriage has all these inconveniences. You don't want to have to look after somebody. You don't want to pick them up from the airport, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But when you love them, and if they're a good friend, you will lovingly do it.
I completely, that's an interesting side to it that you speak about. Yeah. Gets me thinking, really, I mean, for me, when I think of it honestly, friendship cannot survive if there is no love. Acquaintances can exist without love, acquaintances. But my best friend today is my best friend because I have love for him or her. I mean, I care about their happiness and well-being. If they hurt, I hurt. If they're happy, I celebrate. So for me, friendship and love are really intertwined. So if your marriage, or let's say you're coming back to relationships and marriage, if the relationship lacks friendship, it lacks love. And if it lacks love, then it lacks friendship. And there's another point also that I would like to mention, and that is, if you're looking at intimate relationships, besides friendship and love, there are a few other elements there, which is passion and attraction, and that goes deeper than it does with any other kind of relationship. So,
Do you think gender roles, male-female roles, have changed in marriage over time?
They have evolved. We all know that gender roles are largely influenced by the media, by the family, by the environment, by society. And we see that, a lot in women's education, in professional achievements, and you look at family income contributions. But I also say that gender roles vary in different societies, different Absolutely. Expectations culturally. Ashok, I mean, relationships were much easier years ago. At least that's how things looked on the surface. Divorce was literally a taboo, at least in Indian society. I'm sure there was a good deal of silent suffering there as well.
Right. What is the divorce
There are
rate
a
in
lot of
India?
reasons why marriages. Um, I have no idea. I can't say that off the back of my hand, really, what is the divorce rate. But I would say that there was a time when people said that, people considered love marriages failing. Today, there is a lot happening in the arranged marriages as well.
Hmm.
A lot of arranged marriages are failing in India, and the divorce rate has certainly gone up quite a bit. I mean,
What would you say
yeah.
causes divorce?
Well, a lot of things causes divorce. People divorce for all kinds of reasons, big or small. Some of the reasons make a lot of sense, and some of them just leave you shaking your head, really. But the number one reason I personally feel is disconnection between the spouses. And I was talking to Ted on one of our talks, and that I told him, I said, you know disconnection, and this is a great conversation that we had, which was disconnection between the spouses. And I said all other things like infidelity or lack of trust or no respect, lack of communication, you look at intimacy, you look at abuse, you look at addiction, you look at in-law interference, all of these by far have their roots in disconnection. Now when people feel connected, they communicate well. But when they feel disconnected, they communicate in very improper ways. I mean, I've observed that. Regardless of the body language or the choice of words they're using or any communication techniques they could be using, emotional detachment is a big one there. It just doesn't feel like a partnership anywhere. Conflicts don't cause disconnection. The lack of connection causes conflicts. So for me, you're feeling disconnected because you're in a conflict. You're in a conflict because you and your partner have disconnected emotionally, physically, socially. Once you fix that connection, the conflict you're experiencing will dissolve or become less of an issue. So when I'm working with my clients, for instance, I focus on building the connection first, and that begins truly with connecting with yourself first and foremost. You can't connect with your partner if you're disconnected from yourself. Connection with another person happens when you have that sense of freedom within yourself, when you are not carrying that baggage yourself. And if you're feeling insecure, if you're feeling distressed or needy, you got to get all of that. You need to do your inner work.
I write about reciprocal empathy. I think that couples disconnect because they lose interest in experiencing the point of view of their partner.
Yeah.
And if they do that to each other,
Yeah.
imagine if a couple are having a fight and during the fight they say, I really want to understand what you're feeling, what you're saying, and how you're experiencing us right now and me right now. And the other person inquires the same question. That's this kind of a question as opposed to this kind of, because normally they say, you don't know how I feel. You don't know how I feel. Instead of, well, how do you feel? And how do you feel? So I think, and I've done this in my office with couples when they've been in the middle of a horrible fight, and I stop them and I say, how do you think your partner's feeling? Or how do you think your other partner's feeling? It's a game changer. It changes the quality and the tone. So you can
Yeah.
teach them how to be curious about discovering the experience of each other. That can sometimes, at least in my practice, begin to bring people closer together and hopefully this is the way they started, right? So hopefully get that
Oh,
back on.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes down to vulnerability.
Right.
We often, and I've seen that in a lot of failed marriages. It's because one or the other person is not taking the risk of being vulnerable.
Exactly.
It's a mask, it's a facade all the time. There are fears involved. But if one is vulnerable, and I've tried that with some of my couples, the couples who come to me, it it's a game changer, total game changer.
So what strategies do you use to process and employ to successfully coach your clients?
So what I do is, honestly, I have a process which is, I call it the supercharge your relationship E3 way, which is basically looking at um, the triggers. Where are you at the moment? What were the triggers? You offload and dump the baggage. You identify those triggers. So we look at, and I've got some tools that I use with clients because it's very important. I found that a lot of the problems date back to your childhood. So I start looking at really offloading that baggage. Yeah, we work together to understand limiting beliefs, childhood triggered trauma patterns, and post that, then I get into embracing new skills. So whether it's respect, restoring the respect, whether it is communication, whether whatever is the problem. So it's not an off-the-shelf program. I work with individuals. It's a tailor-made, unique program, and so every individual is different, and every individual comes with a different set of challenges. So you work according to them, and then you kind of evolve the new relationship blueprint. I mean, what has taken years and years to go down the hill is going to take some time to come back on top, but nevertheless, it does. I've seen a lot of success, and I think, and that's one thing that I mention to all my clients is when they come to me is, I need your 100% cooperation, because if you cooperate, I promise you some results. I don't promise you that your marriage is going to work out 100%, but you will definitely have the clarity whether you want to stay in the marriage or you want to walk out of it. And when you walk out, you will walk out with a high self-esteem, not traumatized or not in depression. So yeah, that's the process that we follow. Of course, there are a lot of tools, there are a lot of techniques that we use.
I think it's much easier in North America, but are your clients sometimes nervous because of some of the cultural issues around marital problems and divorce? How do they find you?
I'm available on LinkedIn. I'm on all the social media platforms. They connect with me largely through LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm on Instagram as well. And, I have a website that's www.thelifeexperts.com. So they can look me up on my website and connect with me even through LinkedIn or Facebook.
It's amazing. I think you're doing amazing work, Daman.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much for being a guest on First Name Basis. And maybe down the road, we'll speak again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate having me on.